never rains but it pours. If you're a Tottenham fan, lost in the Cup to Sheffield United last week, in the League to Wolves at the weekend, and knocked out of the Champions League in pretty grim style, Brian, by the looks of that. Kind of in keeping with a lot of what Spurs fans have been watching from this team of late, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, they went out with the Cup to Notts for the League Cup to Notts Forest. The match they would have expected to win. The team just been promoted this season out to Sheffield United. We're in the Championship, and now out against Milan, who earlier in the group stages we saw had been beaten convincingly by Chelsea 2-0 and 3-0 in the two group games. They're doing all right, Milan, in the Serie A.
They're no world beaters. We saw them against Chelsea in the Champions League earlier this season, didn't we?
They lost 2-0, 3-0. No world beaters by any means. But look, Spurs are just inconsistent. They lose too many matches, Tommy. They've lost 9 league games out of 26 games. You can't go anywhere with that. Like last season, Conte came in, he did well in terms of they earned a place to get into the Champions League this year. They got forward to pipped Arsenal. And they got forward to the good run towards the end of the season in particular. He put manners on them, put a bit of a shape on it and so on. But they've got worse this year.
They haven't kicked on at all.
No,
considering what Arsenal have done as well.
Exactly. They're looking at what Arsenal are doing with, a lot of homegrown young players coming into the team, good recruitment, stuck with the manager when it wasn't going so well. Have built a team that have given themselves a great chance to win the Champions League this year, or winning the Premier League this year. And Spurs supporters will be looking at that and looking at where they are with fairly heavy investment this season once again. And they say they're Conte's players. I mean, he's signed a couple of players off Juventus, Kulusevski, Bentancur, not fit tonight. Basuma signed from Brighton for about 50 million. They won't play him. I don't know why he signed him if he didn't really want him. The Longley, another one they signed in Barca. The song Richarlison, 50, 60 million for Richarlison, not in the starting team. He's had a few injuries. He's had lots of recruitment, lots of players.
A couple of it, like Basuma and Bentancur both got injured.
Yeah, but he wouldn't play Basuma. He's got good out of Bentancur, but he's constantly complaining that the club aren't backing him enough and their other clubs are buying more players. He's had plenty of chances to buy the right players, but he's not getting consistent results from them. The style of play, people that Spurs supporters wouldn't enjoy the style of play most of the time, but they put up with it when they're winning matches and they're up in the table. They're in 4th place at the moment, Tommy, but they're only 3 points ahead of Liverpool now. Liverpool have a game in hand and have a bit of momentum. They're only 4 points ahead of Newcastle, who have 2 matches in hand on them. So they're not guaranteed, but anyway, they've got to really improve and play well between now. But I don't.
Do you feel it's kind of petering out?
I do,
Conte,
and
yeah.
I think there's signs that he doesn't really want to stay there. He never moved his family over. He's been living in a hotel himself. He's never made any commitment along the lines of, I want to stay next year and build on what we've done this year. When he was asked yesterday, what did he feel Spurs need to do this year? He said, I want us to be competitive. Well, I think people would expect that they are competitive, but that's the minimum. But
Richard, come in here on this then. What now for Spurs? The talk has been, there was a line in one of the papers yesterday, it said that it feels like Conte and Spurs is a relationship that's kind of fizzling out, in its dead days. And the talk has been that the hierarchy have been whispering about bringing Pochettino back. The fans apparently were singing about Mauricio Pochettino at the weekend. Is it back to the future they should go, or tear it up and do something different? What do you think?
It'd be a nice story if Pochettino went back there. I'm sure he feels like he's got some unfinished business. It sort of came to a quick end first time around for him. And I think, like Brian says, you look at Conte and all season, he's not really been a man that's settled, a man that's happy to be manager at Tottenham. And if they could work something out between the two of them, I think he'd be quite happy to leave. For Tottenham, they need something to give them that little impetus between now and the end of the season, because the other teams have the momentum. The other teams are going, Tottenham or Liverpool and Newcastle are teams looking up. Tottenham are just looking back all the time. And I think they need something to change. There seems to be no life in their performances. I think that's 3 games now without a goal, 2 shots on target tonight. There's just there's a disconnect. The fans aren't even with them anymore. The fans, you hear them booing at the end of the match. It's a very difficult situation for Tottenham, and I think the manager may go before the season ends. I think they need to change quickly to try and get back on track, because Conte looks like a man who's obviously he's recovering from an illness, and he probably doesn't have the fight at the moment to drag Tottenham back up, because they are falling away.
Going through the motions a bit. And as Brian said there, they're watching the excitement and the joy a few miles down the road at Arsenal, and it's anything but. And you said it there, Richard, 2 shots on target tonight. You know, your goal down in a European second leg at your home ground, pack the house, man the barricades, let's go for it. And this is the best they could muster.
We spoke about them taking the leaf out of Chelsea's book and being aggressive and pushing forward, and if you're doing that, you're getting more than 2 shots on target. And I think from the highlights that we've seen and the little bits of the match as we were watching it, AC Milan had just as many. AC Milan looked more threatening going forward. They looked more energy and quicker getting forward, and Tottenham were just feeding off scraps.
See, Tommy, if you play every week, and every time you come up against a team in the league that you kind of respect might be a bit better than you, and if you play with a defensive system and playing the counter-attack that way all the time, right? It's very hard to change into, we got to go and attack this team because we're a goal down, we're at home, we'll take the match to them. If the players are tuned into that system where we generally set up with a 5-4...
That's his limitation, so then, is it? Surely a top manager should be able to set the team up to go and get a result.
Well, that's what the Spurs supporters were expecting from him, because he has a magnificent record at being a winner. He was a winner with Chelsea. He was a winner. We went back to Italy. He has a reputation as being a winner and a fantastic manager and a trophy getter. But he spent most of his time at Spurs moaning about the lack of quality, the lack of players. Like, remember last year when they were beat, I think it was a Burnley in the cup match, he almost looked like he was going to pack it in after the match. Yeah. They were in the Conference League last year. They lost some matches, Nantes, and they were very poor in the group. And he looked on the edge then of throwing his hat at it. But then they spent a fortune in the summer. And he still always looks like he never looks like he's happy in the gig.
Yeah, so why do you think it hasn't worked out, that he hasn't brought like that sort of title-winning quality that he had at Juventus, at Chelsea and Inter to Tottenham? Is it something intrinsic in Tottenham that he talks about all the time, that this club doesn't think like the Juventuses or the Inter Milans of this world, the Chelseas of this world, that there's a kind of a mentality within the club that he wasn't able to change? Is that a part of it, or not?
It may well be part of it, but he has always been a very demanding manager in whatever club. He's left clubs fairly quickly after success, where he became over demanding and critical of the players that were there, as if he had no responsibility for it. It was always someone else's responsibility. And when he went into Spurs, people wondered how he would get on with Daniel Levy and the setup at Spurs, where Levy seemed to control things. He was a hard bargainer, wouldn't throw money around too readily. How would he get on with him? They seem to have found a way to work together, but he never comes across that he's happy with the setup or with the ownership or with the investment. It always seems to be about, we need more and more investment for me to make this successful. The mentality of the players isn't good enough. It's always about mentality. But he doesn't seem to be able to get the maximum from the players he has there. Why he was able to do it in Italy, maybe he was more comfortable than that. Why was he able to do it at
Cultural
Chelsea?
Thing, like.
Because the players were better at Chelsea and there was more money available under Abramovich.
So would you like to see Poch back in then, Brian? I know you've got sympathies.
Well, I would. I thought, as Richard
or should
said,
you never go back?
I thought Spurs acted rashly. I mean, not long before they were in the Champions League, they were in the Champions League final. They started that season very badly and they got rid of Poch fairly quickly. I think he built something at Spurs very steadily over his time there. Spurs supporters enjoyed how the team played. He managed to work in young players into the team with the players that were signed. A lot of the money was flittered, the Gareth Bale money, but he recovered things and he built it steadily to the stage. They weren't too far away to win the League One season. But I don't think Spurs people will be too upset. But let's see what happens with Conte. Yeah, maybe he'll go on a run and win a few matches again, and all will be well.
Hope springs eternal, Brian.
Well, we'll see. But I don't think any Spurs supporter will be over optimistic. Based on how this season's been, or how the manager has handled the press conferences, or how he has spoken about the club. He doesn't look happy in the job.
Certainly doesn't, and the Spurs fans don't look too happy this evening, I'd say.